Hello, hello, most beautiful stars. Hello, hello. Happy Wednesday. You are witnessing Edgar Cayce Life Skill Studies. Yes, this is actually a life skill studies where either we discuss his biography and or one of his other source materials from his readings. I am Courtney, host of Stars of the Morning Light, and I see that Lori's in the chat, and so is Seeker of Truth Shelley. Good to see you. Good to see you. With it being live, I do try to speak and engage with those in the chat as best as I can. Now, this is his bio. It's been a couple, maybe 4 weeks, honestly, since we've been in his bio. And where we left off is if we can bring our memories back. And if you don't know, because this is your first time watching, there is a playlist for Edgar Cayce Life Skill Studies. Go on over the playlist. There's tons of them. Lots of good material. We've already been through one of his source books, and his bio will go on and on and on for quite a long time. So where we left off in his bio was that committee had formed. So he had recently been married to Gertrude. Remember, she's not in full support of Edgar doing these readings. Like, she just wants to love the man, be with the man, and have a life and build a life. These readings, as he is kind of now a freak, he's kind of a science experiment. He's involved in a lot of things. Well, that gets in the way. And he appears to be kind of a double person, two different people that she's married to. Well, then the committee was formed. So they're married. There were a lot of different exchanges. The committee was formed. What the committee consists of is professional males, other doctors, scientists. I think there's an architect and a dentist somewhere in the mix who would help run experiments. And what those experiments really were is to put Cayce under a trance, ask questions from the Akashic, and then actually go try out what the Akashic says. And one of the experiments was the power of suggestion. And the Akashic had informed these gentlemen that the power of suggestion is very strong. And the Akashic even suggested, so it could be demonstrated to these gentlemen, that they take a perfectly normal, good, healthy young man, but throughout the day have different strangers or even different people on the street, different folks that he might know that he runs into, to tell him that he does not look good, that he does not feel well, that he is looking peaked, right? Well, by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he was sick. The power of suggestion, what is imprinted into our minds by just what we hear. So that was one of the examples of experiments that were run. And we're going to actually leave today off with how one of the last experiments put a pretty big pause right in Cayce's life as he was about to embark on being a star, right, during the spiritualist movement. One of these experiments kind of knocked him out. So I see that Stephanie came into the chat. Good to see you, my dear. All right, folks. We also left off at the very end of the last bio that he spoke with people that we know from history: Tesla, Edison, a bunch of other different inventors and engineers. One of them that was, behind IBM and all sorts of. We are going to get into that a little bit, get into it, because what was said during that section of the biography, I want to expand upon a little bit, of course. So, welcome everybody. Like I said, I'm Courtney, host of Stars of the Morning Light. We discuss Edgar Cayce usually on some random time on a given Wednesday, always on Wednesday though. I also go live Friday mornings, except this Friday, because I will be recording at that time with Lucky Stone 888, but there will be a video to watch Friday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please join at that time. It's a great way to start your morning. Wherever you are, especially here in the States, some part of a morning, it's a great time to start it. And Lucky Stone 888 and I, of course, are always together at 8 p.m., either here or at his channel. Um, Friday the 25th, we are live at Lucky's channel, and Lucky and I will be sharing personal scary story experiences. It'll be a fun time. It's our Halloween special. I hope everyone is well. Please stay warm. Please stay safe. I want to add a little bit for those who are listening. During the collective Akashic message for October 2024, I did see a lot of fire. I mean, like a lot of fire, fires everywhere. I did not put that vision in the reading when I told it out to everyone, but now I will. I'm just going to tell everybody. I saw visually a lot of fire. So let's just remain safe. Let's remain warm, diligent, and working together. Right? I see that Jackie J came in. Good to see you, my dear. All right, folks. So I was kind of debating where I wanted to start with tonight, and I think I am just going to jump into some of the conversations that came out of him being with the inventors. Now, I want to remind everyone all of the all of the material that was recorded. I think there was a lot that was not recorded, but all of the material that was recorded when he had sat with Tesla a few times. Tesla and him got together a few times. Okay. Um, all of that documentation was accidentally thrown out and burned by like his go-to secretary for the majority of his life. So just interesting. Just interesting. We have absolutely no documentation then of what those conversations covered between Tesla and Edgar Cayce. That's okay. That's okay. I mean, Tesla was brilliant. He also, Edgar met with Einstein as well. And those conversations actually were never recorded. So we're going to talk about a few wonderful men in their own right. Um, but that's why we don't have anything from Tesla with him because it was destroyed. Hmm. Fascinating. Fascinating. Maybe because the world is just not ready sometimes, right? So he did meet often with Tim Brown, who was an engineer who founded Delco, Mitchell Hastings, who was one of the pioneers of the FM radio, NBC, and IBM. So these are all household names for most of us here, at least in the States. Um, think about that. So, I mean, forerunners. We would not be here communicating this way if it was not for some of these men who hung out with Edgar, who willingly went to go get readings from Edgar. So this is where we left off with the last bio. And this is from one of their conversations. I'm going to just kind of read from where we're at. Mitchell Hastings, a pioneer of FM radio at NBC and later on an electrical engineer at IBM, is evidence that the source is not only capable of addressing this topic, but believed that that it could provide an important avenue or bridge for raising the consciousness of inventors seeking to understand the relationship between science and spirituality. So Hastings, who for you know worked for all of this stuff, um, thought that Edgar and his readings could mesh the science and spirituality based on consciousness, avenue or bridge for raising the consciousness of inventors seeking to understand the relationship between science and spirituality, which, according to the source, now, source in this is referred to as whoever Edgar is communicating with. They did not have a name for what was going on right now. But at this time, once the committee started coming into play, asking a bunch of different questions, running all sorts of experiments, they started to reference it as the source, as in the source of whoever is communicating, the source of wherever this information is coming. But in today's world, since the spiritualist movement, source now can be represented as even God or ultimate creator, what have you. So it is the Akashic records that Edgar's communicating with. The relationship between science and spirituality, which according to the source were the same thing. Science and spirituality, the same thing. This is a quote from one of his readings. Electricity is at the heart of all life. Cayce in a trance would frequently tell his inventors, so all these inventors who would come by, electricity is life. I continue. In one particular fascinating exchange between Cayce and Hastings, the source would describe the physical universe as consisting of mind, matter, and energy. Please take that in, folks. This is why so often here at Stars of the Morning Light, you hear me talk about nothing but energy. Source, from source, would describe the physical universe, all that you all know, is consisting of mind, matter, and energy, which were all said to be various forms of electrical vibration. The source stated that every phenomena was a manifestation of the vibrations emanated by these three elements. Every phenomenon, all of creation, you are a phenomenon. Everything is a manifestation of mind, matter, and energy. The source stated that every phenomenon was a manifestation of vibrations emanated by these three elements, and that Hastings must understand that the vast range of frequencies existed on or about the earth that were as yet undetectable by modern scientific equipment. So Hastings, this is a conversation with Hastings that was recorded, that the source was trying to say it is from mind, matter, and energy. And there's so much to this that your equipment, what you see, what you witness, what you even probably hypothesize, will not show you the magnitude of what this is. The origin of all electricity, or the first vibration, the first vibration, that's in quotes, was God's creation of the universe, which was described as a sorry guys, wow, cosmic blast that started everything in motion and created matter itself. On a smaller scale, man could manifest the same divine power as a creator or co-creator of their personal universe. That mind, matter, and energy are inseparable. I do not believe. The source told Mitchell Hastings, for energy is the mind seeking to find expression. That seeking is the energy, and the expressed is the matter. So I want to point out many things right now. First of all, a lot of you who actually listen to my collective readings or even the zodiac readings, oftentimes I have to say, they'll say things like, believe it not. They're not going to put it in good, perfect English for you to understand that they're saying you don't believe. They tend to talk differently, as in, believe it not, as in, you don't believe. And there's an exact example that the same happens when he's talking with Hastings. This is quoted that mind, matter, and energy are inseparable. I do not believe. What the Akashic was saying right there was, you don't believe. We're speaking for you. You don't believe this, Hastings, right? But the Akashic was breaking it down, folks. The Akashic was breaking it down to a level that Hastings was definitely not ready for at the turn of the century. A level that a lot of people still are struggling with. Let's bring it back to where we were before that. Okay. So we have the first great vibration. The first great vibration. This is when I'm constantly saying, I don't care if you think it as first thought, first vibration, first light, first the word. I don't care how people think of it, but there was a first energy, some kind of energy, right? So, first great vibration was God's creation of the universe, which was described as a cosmic blast that started everything in motion and created matter itself. On a smaller scale, man, you, me, human, all the lovely people in the chat, all the people listening later, all the people listening now, man could manifest the same divine power as a creator or co creator of their personal universe. I'm going to go to another quote that comes from Source telling Hastings, for energy is the mind seeking to find expression. The seeking is the energy, and that expressed is the matter. In keeping with this philosophy, Cayce and Trans would tell both Hastings and Brown that devices could be made to measure thought forms, much like meters were made to measure volts. So, in the exact same conversation, the Akashic started telling these fellas, it's hard for you to believe this stuff. It's very hard for you to believe because A, it's not what theology has told you for a long time, even though science has been starting to prove it. Because this was 100 years ago, folks. These readings were, um, well, I think about 1908 or so, right? We haven't even hit 1920 really. Source, the Akashic, was trying to get Hastings and Brown to understand there is going to be new equipment out there in the world one day that will be able to measure these type of vibrations, that will be able to show and prove these things, which we have in today's world. How fabulous for us, because it makes it easier to obtain the understanding that we are energy building beings as one. I What paused me there is I saw a post today. I don't scroll too much, but I saw a post today. And science has now proven that the hands of a human emanate light, vibration, and actually our fingertips release the most. So I tend to try to teach the patrons of Stars of the Morning Light to pay attention and try to see the energy exchange between people, places, and things. We can witness it, we can see it. It doesn't have to just be a feeling, even though we often feel it. We can also see it. If we start to work on training and opening our eyes to the fact that we are just exchanging energy all the time. Now, science, 100 years later from these fellas hearing this stuff, is literally showing us that we, on a smaller scale, can create and be co creators and manifest our own personal little universes, our own personal little lives. We can change whatever we need to, that we have the exact same power. That is coming from the Akashic in early 1900, and it's coming to you again here at Stars of the Morning Light. It is possible. It's extremely possible, folks. Extremely possible. I teach it to the patrons all the time. All the time. So he also met with Edison. Edison, without going into too much about him. So Hastings and Brown, and even Tesla. Tesla was even more open, even Einstein, because Einstein, they all kind of understood science and spirituality definitely mix somehow. Even if they don't really understand how, they understood that there was a mix there. And Edgar continuously, when he was in a trance and source, the Akashic records were talking, it always, always will go back to energy, that all things are energy. Mind, matter, energy. Mind, matter, energy. It's a beautiful trinity. It really is. So Edison, for all who that he was, um, I mean, he was science all the way. He he struggled very much so with any kind of spirituality and kind of discounted all of it. But I do understand. I mean, he had a very interesting history, and again, I'm not going to go into Edison's history. Y'all can on your own time, but I understand as to why. So when he would meet with Casey, the conversations wouldn't necessarily be as smooth when, like, another person take Hastings. If the Akashic said, "You don't believe this yet, but you should," Hastings was at least open. Edison, not so much. So during one of the conversations, the human soul came up, and Edison didn't even think that we have one. So didn't even think we had one. Edison was like, I think it's ridiculous and it makes no point that people are trying to find out if we have a soul. Science should not waste their time with it. It's not a thing. So let's look at that for a moment, folks. All Casey said about the meeting, so the meeting with Edison, was that he and the electrical wizard, that was in quotations, so that must be the nickname that probably the Akashic gave Edison or Edgar at some point, maybe jokingly, but it probably came from the Akashic. The electrical wizard for Edison. All Casey said about the meeting with Edison was that he, the electrical wizard, had a difference of opinion regarding the nature of man's soul. Edison was a firm believer that such a thing as a soul didn't exist, that it was purely a cultural idea. Edison did, however, believe that much more research needed to be conducted on the subject. I will tell all you guys right now, he wanted everyone to be disproved about it. He really did not think humans had a soul, but that's okay, right? That's okay. He was the science that he did do, we desperately needed, so that's okay. When we see the entire world seeking, 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 there must be something to it. That is a quote that Cayce told Edison. When we see everyone seeking, 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 then something must exist. There's got to be something to it. Here's another one, folks. I am convinced that when scientists go to work at studying God, just as they have undertaken to study how to make great conveniences for mankind, we will learn something about the soul, if there is one. That was now Edison. If scientists would take to studying about God, I'm sure we'll find one. He really didn't believe, folks. He didn't. But that's okay. That's okay. Because I have a feeling the meetings might have swayed him down the road. Given the subject of the Edison meeting, it was also interesting to note that Edgar Cayce in a trance could actually discuss more than just the theoretical foundations of alleged electrical link between mind, matter, and energy. In the 1920s, Cayce would provide blueprints for devices that were proven to uh, that weren't in existence yet. In 1930s, he was helping Hastings create things, invent things. He also, I will tell you, he helped a new like civic engineer came in and electrician. He was also electrician. Came in to do the complete new layout of Hopkinsville in Kentucky, where Edgar was at, or in his life. You know, he was from Hopkinsville. This guy came in to redo all the electrical because this was now, whoa, there's a thing called telephones, there's a thing called electric. He went to Cayce first, and I guess that guy's like layout of the area, layout of how to do things was not as that Cayce gave him an entire new blueprint for the entire town and city and how to go about it, and he followed the advice, and his how he designed it then lasted decades, decades upon decades upon decades. So the main point was that Edgar, as the committee started to find out, could talk about a lot of things. So he's talking about mind, matter, and energy. He's talking about humans do have souls. There's a reason why they seek so much. There's got to be something to this, right? He could help with all inventors, building things, learning technology that's not even here yet. Edgar is known for helping inventors that, like I said, we're sitting here in front of a computer. This would not be if it wasn't for Edgar Cayce in many ways talking with different inventors. I really do wish they had the information that he and Tesla had spoken about. I have a feeling, I do have a feeling, this is just a feeling. I haven't investigated. I've never asked the Akashic. While I'm there, that's not what I'm thinking about. Um, but I do have a feeling that Tesla, with all of his thoughts and hypothesis about pyramids and energy and source energy and energy for all and all sorts of stuff. We know Tesla, right? I have a feeling that he probably went to Edgar to maybe get some confirmation, maybe get some affirmations to the fact that confirmations and affirmations that, yeah, you're doing a good job. This is how it works. Because we know that Tesla communicate with other beings as well. And so for all of you listening, life skills here at Edgar Cayce, we might be able to communicate with things, right? We might be able to communicate with our guides. We might be able to communicate with outside sources, influences, right? Especially the patrons of Stars of the Morning Lights, they're learning techniques on how to do so right now. We might be able to do that. That does not mean to make that the end all be all. Find someone else to bounce things off of. And honestly, that's what Lucky Stone 888 and I do often on Friday nights. We might be bouncing things off of each other. Find someone else. And I think that for Tesla visiting Edgar, I think a handful of times. I mean, I know that at least 5 times Tesla visited Edgar. That was probably to double check. Hey, what's the source say about this? And I can almost guarantee because Tesla understood pyramids that it was a definite that the Akashic spoke to Tesla through Edgar about that. I can pretty much guarantee it, folks, because I work with pyramids. So I wish we had it. I wish we had it. How is everyone doing? How is everyone doing? They don't have much in this bio about the inventors because this is his biography. We're supposed to be talking about Edgar. But I did want to inform everyone about that. A, mind, matter, energy. This is where we get, I mean, this is where we get all the hermetic stuff. There's a lot in hermetics that people, in my humble opinion, can outgrow, can ascend out of. But mind, matter, and energy, that's never going to change. That's if you listen to any of the Toth material here. That is the how to create form out of the formless. And I was thinking today, well, geez, if this is the life skills of Edgar Cayce, I want to pose to everyone here that is maybe not a patron of Stars of the Morning Light. I posed something to the patrons 2 weeks ago. If we are, and I'm saying that we are, but I will put an if on it. If we are small divine creators ourselves, co creators, and we can manifest and we can create form out of the formless, because all is energy, vibration, first thought, first word, first vibration, first light, however you want to see it, you have that within. You can create form out of the formless. You can manifest whatever you choose. People are doing it already without acknowledging it. First, acknowledge it, please. Let's just play with the idea that we can do that. So we don't have to know right now if it's a yes, if it's a fact, or if it's a fiction, right? We don't need to do that. We need to just, what if you could play with that concept? Let's go a little bit further. What I posed to the patrons a couple of weeks ago was, with manifesting, we are at a time right now where the energies are available to everyone to manifest whatever they choose. But often with manifesting, we tend to only try to create what has already been done, or try to create and receive what we see around us. Think about it. When we want to manifest, it's usually money, or a new car, or a healthy relationship, or a new house, or the perfect job. Most of all, I will truly say, and for the majority of all of us, we try to manifest what already is in our eyes, in our scope of awareness. What if we could step outside of our scope of awareness and realize that we are that divine, we are creators? As the Akashic said just 2 months ago to everyone, we are leaders of creation. What if we stepped out of the scope of what we've always known, ever seen, ever heard, ever witnessed, ever read throughout all the history of all the worlds, all the lands? What if we stood outside of that, or saw outside of that, or tried to imagine what is outside of that to bring into creation? What I mean by that is, for many of us, we would love to manifest a world of love, peace, harmony, right? I would think everyone listening to this episode right now, you can let me know in the comments. I do believe that all of us would want a beautiful, balanced world full of peace, harmony, coexistence. It sounds good, right? When has that ever been witnessed? That is what I'm trying to say. We have nothing in our mindset to guide us in that manifestation. So we have to kind of go outside and stretch our imaginations. Stretch it, stretch it, stretch it. So if we're going to play with this and we're going to try to see it in order to manifest it, because we are mind, matter, vibration, energy. If we want to manifest such things, well, then we have to start imagining them. What would that look like? Because we've never seen it. So, what would it look like? All the humans working peacefully with each other, doing, enjoying, being, all the animals, all the humans, all the creepy crawlies and tall trees. What would that look like? If we can spend time daydreaming about the new car, if we can spend time daydreaming about all these needs and cares that we want met, well, wouldn't that be the ultimate? So let's play with this, folks. That is what I'm proposing here for this life skill aspect of Edgar Cayce life skill studies is that we're manifesting all the time, but we continuously are manifesting what we've always known and done. We are continuously manifesting same old, which is really insanity, right? This is why most people say we live in clown world. Well, we kind of do because we're manifesting, creating, co-creating with each other what has always been. So let's expand our imagination, expand our possibilities, expand our magic of creation, and spend time daydreaming, asking yourself, what would that look like? What would that really look like? What would that feel like? What would that taste like? What would that, all of our senses, what would that be like to live in a world that operated not on fear, jealousy, and greed and competition, but operated in love, peace, and harmony, balance of all things? What would that look like? Spend some time doing that, please, because it's a big difference. And that's where hermetics gets you. And I've said this a million times. I don't mind hermetics because we have to learn the majority of those principles. Well, you got to learn all the principles. You have to learn the principles and really understand the principles and really take the principles in order to understand that you are bigger and more ultimate and more divine and more capable in creation and co-creation than those principles want to tell you. We do not need to live in duality. We do not need to live in duality. We do not. We do not. Rhythm can sway back and forth in lovely creation ways without getting stuck, right? Because we know how to use the energy and move it ourselves, right? So a lot of hermetics is not um it keeps us in 3D. That's how I'll put that. It keeps us in 3D. But if you do want to pay attention to mind, matter, energy, and that all is energy, as that Casey had quoted at two separate times, the fellas understood it back then. Electricity is at the heart of all life. Electricity is life. Energy is at the heart of all life. Energy is life. So if that be the case, well then we can start using our energy just as the divine did. We can create a brand new, brand new, brand new. We don't have to keep doing the same thing over and over again. The repetitiveness of 3D and certain hermetic principles that do not apply anymore. So, and more about that, lovely people. Friday, I do have to pre-record, like I said, because I have a gathering of local students and patrons that are local at my house that evening. So Friday morning, that is normally live at 11 a.m., is pre-recorded, but I will be talking about the fundraiser to help hurricane relief, and also order and chaos. Not order versus chaos, order and chaos, new beginnings. So that's Friday at 11 a.m. And I see that lovely John Price just showed up. Good to see you, my dear. All right. So because I got about 20 minutes left, I wanted to tell you in his bio, we're about to hit a certain time period where there's a pause. Let me read you this. Ironically, just as Edgar Cayce had reached a point in his career when he was poised to receive national attention for his trance readings, an untimely series of events caused him to close his photo studio and leave the spotlight. As was the case often in his career, the problems first began with his own declining health. So, not only was Edgar being very much becoming known for his photography. Remember his photography? He was a very talented photographer, probably because he could see the world differently. And also the readings. But now there's a pause. He had to close the photo studio. Everything kind of took a pause. I'm going to bring up the first one of those chain events, because the other one is going to be much more detailed because it's going to wrap around questions. So that is when we come together again for his bio. What happens when a reader can't read for someone? The Akashic says, I have nothing for this person. What does that mean? And what was going on in Casey's life? The experiment that I spoke of at the very beginning that the committee did that really propelled having to take a pause. Before that, though, on January 1st in 1906, Edgar was working at a furniture store and his photo studio, right? He was working hard. He just got married. He was working hard. It was cold, January. He's working putting furniture together in like a warehouse, think of it. In today's world, it would be a cold warehouse, right? All day in the cold. When he gets to the studio, it's also cold there. Something kinda took over Edgar, and by the time he walked down the steps from his studio to kinda sit by the fire, he completely fell over. Now, as we know, Edgar is capable of just kind of his body just shutting down, just shutting down. If he does not take care of himself and he's working too much, maybe malnutritioned, possibly doing too many readings, all sorts of stuff, right? If Edgar is not taking care of himself, and of course he didn't know any of this, his body will completely shut down and he will be dead asleep. Dead asleep to the point of, yeah, dead, pretty much, to the point that no one was reviving Edgar. So they call a bunch of local guys, doctors and guys come over, and they're one of the doctors, not Edgar's doctor, who actually knew doctor, but a doctor. They were trying to get Edgar's mouth open. They couldn't find a pulse. Okay. They could not find a pulse anywhere. His wrist, his neck, they could not find a pulse. When people like Edgar and myself go into something like that, it's almost a full on coma state. Our bodies just shut down. When we do something like that, and I've been experiencing it since, well, the first I can remember is like first grade. Because my mom would always call me out of school for like 3 or 4 days because I would just sleep. It would just be this a massive 3 days straight sleep, right? And she would just tell him I have the flu, but that wasn't the case. I would just be sleeping. I would not wake up to go to the bathroom. I would not anything. I think by the second night in a row, she would kinda try to wake me up a bit to go to the bathroom, and then I'd go right back to bed. You just sleep, but it is such a almost like coma-like state that you don't move. A lot of people would question if you're breathing. You probably wouldn't be able to find a pulse really because it would just be so low, okay? Well, imagine that. Edgar, in my humble opinion, fell into one of those, but it was probably much more severe because he was probably very sick and the cold. Well, this was the problem though, then folks. They couldn't find a pulse. So they started injecting him with some stuff. Random stuff. And I have the words here, but they're big medical words, science words, bad drugs, folks, that we don't really even probably use anymore. They started injecting him with stuff. That did nothing. Then they couldn't get his jaw open because the doctor was like, "Well, I guess if I throw some whiskey down his throat, that'll stun him awake, the burn, it'll stun." He couldn't open Edgar's jaw, so he knocked out Edgar's bottom teeth to try to get the whiskey in. That didn't really work either, so then he injected Edgar with 2 more different drug chemicals. None of this is waking Edgar up. Well, the one that's been working with him, Blackburn, who is an actual medical doctor and the head guy on the committee who knows all about who Edgar is. Also knows all about Edgar's history with his sleep issue or other medical issues, right? Because Edgar's had many medical issues, different forms. Blackburn finally shows up and he finds out what these men are doing. I mean, he's seen the evidence. I mean, there's blood drain. It's a horrible mess. Blackburn starts screaming at all of these men, "Get out, get out, get out." He then turns to Cayce and he starts doing what they learned to do with him. He started talking to Edgar's subconscious. For an hour or so, he kept whispering to Edgar in his ear, "I am speaking to Edgar Cayce's subconscious. Tell him to wake up. I am speaking to Edgar's subconscious. Tell him to wake up." Well, finally, within about an hour or so, Edgar kind of starts coming to. But now, folks, he's worse off than he was before. He starts coming to. Blood starts pouring out of his mouth because they knocked out his teeth. His arms, where they gave him these horrible shots, were bruised and it looked like they were pooling blood. It was a mess. So, Edgar, what is going on? And Blackburn told him. And they both agreed, "We actually have to put you in a trance to find out what to do here, like how to help you." So Edgar said, "Yes. Like I don't even know what happened to me, right?" So he then went into a trance. Blackburn very quickly asked, "What do we do with his body? He has poisons in him now. He's missing teeth. Like, what does this body need?" And of course, they said, because they also I missed a part. They also were wrapping Edgar in steaming hot cloths because they probably thought he was frostbit. Even though he walked down the stairs, he didn't show any signs of frostbite, but they were just speculating. So, and then they laid him by the fire, right? And didn't notice that his bottoms of his feet were being burned. So, the Akashic was like, "Wow, this is what you do to heal those feet. Wow, you have to actually take a syringe and suck out where you're seeing that blood pooling. We need you to suck out all of that because that's where the poison is." And then they basically said with the teeth, like, "Well, that's gonna hurt the next day really bad. There's nothing we can really do about it now." And then they were giving instruction as to what to just let Edgar fall out. I mean, that's basically what they said. Let Edgar go to sleep. Edgar needs this body needs to rest. This body needs to rest. What I'm trying to say, folks, is that it's a different kind of rest because after the trance, Blackburn then told Edgar Cayce, "Go to sleep." Kind of like Gertrude had done many years prior. Edgar then went to sleep and didn't wake up for 3 or 4 days, and everybody started freaking out. Dr. Blackburn, knowing Edgar's history, did the same thing. He went, "Go to sleep." And Edgar fell asleep. And in those days, they sucked out all the poison. They cleaned up his mouth as best as they could. They healed a lot of the bottom of his feet. Edgar started the color was coming back to his face. But here's the big difference. Dr. Blackburn never even bothered. Well, he checked for a pulse and he couldn't find one, but he trusted that Edgar was fine. Because during the readings, Dr. Blackburn often, as when Edgar would go into a trance, he would check for pulses, he would check for breathing. We also learned that if you obstruct anything within here, this area of the body, the upper torso and the head, while Edgar is in a trance, giving messages, if you put anything in front of that, a hand. Edison tried to record him a bunch of times and it didn't work because he was putting the device right in front of Edgar's mouth. It was obstructing the pathway of communication and what Edgar's body was doing while he was in the Akashic and the body of form here. It's different things are happening. And this body of form, Blackburn knew, even if that pulse goes so low to the point that I might not be able to detect it, even if it looks like he's not really breathing, I'm going to let Edgar lay. He needs to lay, he needs to just sleep. I know he will wake up when he needs to wake up, or I will then whisper into his subconscious again. Very big difference from having other medical professionals, at least at the time, break your teeth to get whiskey down your throat, pump you full of a bunch of stuff. So that was one of the things that started this chain reaction of there needing to be a long pause, right? There needing to be a long pause for Edgar, which I wish he would start taking that more so in his later years, but he didn't. He was a very caring and loving man and would do as much as he can for as many as he can. And when I was looking at all this information a bit ago, I was thinking about that. I don't have an answer to this question, but I'm going to leave y'all with a question. It is a fascinating question. They referred to that as Edgar, as the what I just described, as a near-death experience. Edgar did not die. He was nowhere near death in my humble opinion, but that's because I know what happens. I know what I know what happens with our body, and I know what happens within the soul and mind of one who can obtain the Akashic. I know what goes on. But most everyone referred to that as a near-death experience with Edgar. So I kind of want to pose this question. I don't have an answer, folks. Maybe we all have a personalized answer, or maybe we just go with the status quo. Near death experience usually relate to those who do die and then come back, right? They do die and then they come back. But couldn't, hypothetically, those who suffer very big traumatic experiences, like, think of all the beautiful, veterans who experience, gunfires going right past them and their buddy got hurt. Wouldn't that also be considered near-death experience? Or those who have ever been in a drive-by. I've been in drive-bys. Those are near-death experiences, let me tell you. So I don't know if that is the right form of language to use for that. I really don't. This is just thoughts that run through my head or, the horrible car accidents. Those are death, near death. We might not die, but we got very, very close to mortality. So why are those not a category as well? Because I'm sure they open people's eyes differently. I'm sure things because all his energy maybe gets kinda knocked, circuits start to open, things start to change, perspective, gifts might open up, all sorts of things. So, I guess I'm just wondering, I believe we should be able to tack on death occurrences, death, you know, happenings, right? Death, um I think we should be able to tack that on. I don't think that everyone who um, receives special opportunities of enlightenment and growth and expansion awareness, right? I don't think that they necessarily have to flatline and then come back. So if that were the case, my dears, if you agree with me or maybe not agree with me, I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. What qualifies as a near death experience? If it's a whole lot of different scenarios, whole lot of different things that happen in life, from war to car accidents to domestic violence to all sorts of things, right? That happen in this world. If those can go in the same category because they opened our eyes, they expanded our awareness, they got us so, so, so close to our own mortality that we began to realize that we were ultimate, that we were bigger, that we were more than just this average day life, then I think a whole lot of people in this world, if that be the case, a whole lot of people in this world must be walking around with a very interesting expanded awareness, a very interesting perspective, possibly gifts that they might have shuttered away again, but could easily access at any time. When humans usually, on the onset of an immediate, dangerous acceptance of their own mortality, on the other side of that is a fascinating richness of an appreciation for life and the gifts of the divine within. So I'm just curious. I'm just curious. Tell me your thoughts. Let me know in the comments. Let me know as you're passing through. Please give me a thumbs up. Share this out. We will be with Edgar again with his Edgar Cayce on reincarnation next Wednesday at some point. I'll let y'all know. Be here Friday morning. It'll be a great conversation. And again, be here on Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Lucky Stone 888. And me will be talking. I think we're talking cryptos this Friday. How fun! So thanks everybody for coming into the chat. Lori, Seeker, John, Jackie, Stephanie, y'all are priceless. Thank you, you beautiful stars. And for everybody else, I'll see you on the flip side. Bye, guys.